Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everybody, guess what, this is Daniel Gray. I am the host of the Trailer Park Profit Show. This is Local Friday, where we look under the hood of a few local governments, talk about how you affect your local government, your own community. I'm trying to play the bumper music here, but we're having some technical difficulties here at Blog Talk Radio, but at least I'm live. Sorry about Wednesday. I don't know what was going on, but we were cut off from Blog Talk Radio. And in the future, what I'm going to do is go ahead and do the broadcast so that if you want to, you can go on to my YouTube channel and get the show there. Although I did just decide to call up the show. I tried to get back into Blog Talk a bunch of times, and it, just really wasn't happening. So anyway, if you want to call into the program, you can do that by dialing 646-716-8506. Again, if you want to talk to the Trailer Park Profit, and who doesn't, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. Again, you're listening to Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, and we're broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio. Let me see if I can get the Rolling Stones bumper music for the Trailer Park Prophet Show. Yeah, there you go. Everything's cool with Blog Talk Radio. That's good to know. All right, a few things that I wanted to mention that I wasn't able to mention on Wednesday that I think are vitally important for all of us to know. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh on Wednesday, and he was talking about in the 1980s, 1988, that it took 4 taxpayers to pay for one person's Social Security check. So back in 1988, it took 4 people, or at least that was the ratio, 4-to-1. 4 taxpayers to every person receiving Social Security. And now, today, it's 2-to-1. There are 2 taxpayers for every Social Security recipient. Recipient? Is that right? Or whoever. So, the person who is owed Social Security. And that quite frankly is unsustainable. Now, the actual numbers are, there are today approximately 86 million workers that pay for 148 million people to be on SSI and other government programs. So it's almost 2-to-1. Recipients to actual taxpayers. Now that's not sustainable. And those kind of numbers are the kind of numbers that can destroy our economy from the inside. And these are the kind of numbers that people like Francis Fox Piven and Sal Alinsky said you needed to rot the United States from the inside and eventually collapse our economy, collapse our government, and then that's when the progressive socialist statists will ride in on their communist white horses to say, hey, look, capitalism's failed, time for communism. USSR in the Ukraine still. In fact, we're getting reports that there's now tanks in the Ukraine. All kinds of information coming out of the Ukraine. It's hard to know really what's going on because the actual official sources aren't forthcoming or not available. But there looks like in the Crimea, which is the northern part of Ukraine, that there are various factions going at it, taking over government facilities, army bases, some pro-Ukraine, some pro-Soviet, and it's just basically total chaos. and the Obama administration and John Kerry are trying to work out some sort of an agreement. In fact, I believe they're someplace in Europe right now trying to work out an agreement with Russia to get out of the Ukraine. I don't see any of that happening. I mean, if you look at all the tea leaves on the international stage, it looks like Obama is seen as a feckless, weak president, and I think Putin is just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and keep taking over more and more of the Ukraine. I don't think anyone in the world community, including those in Europe, have any stomach to tell Putin to stop, but we'll see. You know, I don't really know. I know I'm the Trailer Park Prophet. I'm looking into my plastic crystal ball right now as we live and breathe, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I just can't imagine that Putin is going to back off his invasion of the Ukraine, unless, of course, there's some sort of really great, grand bargain. Now, Putin can go back to his people and say, hey, look, this is what I've done for you. And I would imagine a deal like that would have to be gargantuan. Because really, Putin right now is in a position where it doesn't really matter what the European Union or the United States or the UN do to him in terms of sanctions. He's already got the tacit support of the Chinese, and he can basically go ahead with his invasion of the Ukraine and maybe other countries, and no one's going to say much of anything. I mean, they may try to pass, like I said, some sanctions, but they're not going to cut off his oil. They're not going to cut off the natural gas that flows from Russia through the Ukraine into Europe. No way that's going to happen. And that money is Putin's bread and butter. Now, if we come up with a report that says that Europe is planning on cutting off their imports of Russian oil and propane, natural gas, then we know the Europeans are serious. But I don't think they can afford to do that. You can't run a modern society without having some fossil fuels. It can't happen. Not in this day and age. So we'll continue to watch that story. There is a Senate bill in Colorado, Senate Bill 175. I don't really know how it turned out. It has to do with abortion rights and whether or not people have the right to stand in front of an abortion clinic. Protest against abortion. Another bill in Colorado has to do with 4-time DUI criminals. I don't know what happened to this bill. I'll try to find out over the weekend, but Colorado had a bill that if you had 4 DUIs in your driving history, that the 4th one will land you in jail for 5 years. Hey, did you hear this? Chelsea Clinton is heavy with child. Kind of an interesting thought, considering there's been like a bunch of stories out there about Chelsea Clinton maybe entering the family business of politics, and a lot of different media outlets have been speculating on whether or not Chelsea is going to be a politician or not. But now we know that Chelsea's pregnant and has a baby. I certainly wish the best. There's a picture of her on the internet, not very flattering picture, but kind of funny. So anyway, it's all, and a lot was also said about Chelsea Clinton, about how her, and we were talking about Jay Carney and his family on that magazine picture, and how the liberals seem to want to come from stable heterosexual traditional marriages. Like Chelsea, she's married, been married for a while, now she's going to have a kid. I mean, that's traditional. Jay Carney, I think he married into a ready-made family, but regardless, maybe he didn't, I don't really know. I mean, at least the pictures of Jay Carney, and Jay Carney, you might remember, is the president's spokesperson. There was this deal about him and his family in the kitchen, And yet, here's Jay Carney. He's a traditional family kind of guy, too. His wife stays at home, runs a family, runs a household, and Jay runs off to the White House and spreads the president's lies. But a lot was made. I think Rush was talking about it, maybe Glenn Beck, about how, it's ironic that all of these progressive, socialist, statist politicians are all from traditional families. And it's interesting that's the case, and that they're not more single-sex families, or a lot of the higher ups. They're not single mother households and that kind of thing. But the people that make it in Washington D.C. generally are people from traditional families. Just kind of interesting, I think. Probably not a big deal, but it is interesting. And liberals are very proud of their traditional families. I mean, look how proud President Obama is of his traditional family. Oh, this is bad news. How much do you think the average taxpayer pays for welfare? You got a number in mind? Well, according to the Money Morning, your daily map to financial freedom, it's time for the government to admit the facts. The war on poverty is a malicious, unsustainable conspiracy designed to destroy America's middle class. Today, there are 108 million Americans receiving some form of welfare, but only 101 million full-time workers paying these benefits, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Now, that's just, they talk about the 50% tipping point. Well, I think we might be there. We have more people receiving some kind of federal benefit in the form of welfare, 1,000,008, to the 100,000,001 full-time workers paying for these benefits. Now remember, we have approximately 322 million people living in the United States, so we've already reached that tipping point that so many economists talk about. And it goes on to say here that while President Obama campaigned against the rich for a stronger middle class, the truth is his actions are part of a government conspiracy keeping poor Americans out of work and on welfare. And, I know that sounds kind of diabolical, but all you got to do is read Sal Alinsky or read Francis Fox Piven, and you can see that's exactly what's going on here. Let's see. The end goal for Obama and the political elite orchestrating this scheme: career politicians are unlimited power and wealth as a nation entirely dependent on Uncle Sam, and both Democrats and Republicans alike are involved. Quote, what you're seeing in Washington is not a capital that is hopelessly divided, it's hopelessly interconnected. The New York Times Magazine chief national correspondent Mark Leibowitz recently wrote the conspiracy started 50 years ago when Lyndon B. Johnson initiated the war on poverty. Quote, this is Johnson, what I'm doing is taking from the haves and giving to the have-nots, Johnson said back then in 1964. And Johnson also said on the war on poverty, he says if we pass this, he literally said this, President Johnson, if we pass the war on poverty measures back in 1964, we're going to have those niggers voting for us for 200 years. You can Google that. And it says the giving has been expanded ever since, today reaching its most critical level ever. As Thomas Jefferson warned, quote, democracy will cease to exist when you take away from those who are willing to work and give to those who would not. And let's see, when you add up all of the possible benefits from food, housing, medical care, social services, and cash. A family of 4 could receive up to $40,000 a year in tax-funded subsidies. Why would someone work making $50,000, $60,000 when after paying taxes they will receive less than they could have by just sitting at home and relying on the welfare checks? The numbers don't lie. The entitlement disaster is plaguing the country. To keep the federal welfare program solvent, each American taxpayer is forced to pay an average of $8,776 each year. At the same time, the average welfare recipient is handed $9,500 per year today in what is often called free government benefits. Additional money comes from the country's ever-increasing deficit, which now stands at $17 trillion, and while the U.S. population has risen 56% since 1969, that's a good number to know. In other words, our population has risen 56% since 1969. The number of Americans on food stamps has surged 1,625%. You know, my friend Kent Walker, he says that we shouldn't have a food stamp program, but what we ought to have is if somebody needs some help and they need some food, they ought to get a bag of rice and a bag of beans instead of getting a EBT credit card. I call it the Walker Welfare Plan. You need help from the government, you get a bag of beans and a bag of rice. And while the U.S., okay, I already said that. Plus, it's now projected that approximately 50% of all U.S. children will be on food stamps at some point in their lives before they reach 18. Even more appalling, in 2011, the government spent $41 million just for advertising food stamps. According to Representative Paul Ryan, Washington is making the poverty trap worse. With welfare crisis looming, now is the time to take steps to protect yourself. And it goes on and on and on and on. Pretty good article, some really good facts there that I think are definitely something that all Americans need to understand. All right, we're going to check the headlines here. You're listening to Daniel Gray on the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live from beautiful downtown, sunny, warm, beautiful Crestone, Colorado. This is Loco Friday. I'm on Drudge right now. I thought I'd check the headlines. Antarctic sea ice setting all-time daily records. Remember, Al Gore and the environmentalist wackos were saying that in 2014 the Arctic sea ice would be completely gone. Well, obviously that's not the case. In fact, as this article suggests, says that the Antarctic sea ice setting all-time new levels, and the North Pole ice is setting all-time new records too. Report from USA Today. What is this? This is kind of, oh, no, I got this right. Report USA vulnerable to terrorism in space. We've talked about that before. Putin on Snowden. Snowden quizzes Russian press on surveillance. I wonder what that's all about. So, well, that is kind of a big deal. If President Putin of Russia is giving audience to Mr. Snowden, who was the guy that ran off with all the NSA secrets, that is nothing more than a slap in the face to Obama. Now, this is from British Mail Online, which I believe is a British news agency. And here, let's see, what's this say here? We might even have it on the... Oh my God, it shows Snowden on the video. Let's see. Mr. Snowden, you are a former agent, a spy. President Putin said, I used to be working for an intelligence service. We are going to talk one professional language. Our intelligence efforts are strictly regulated by law. Special forces can use this kind of equipment as they intercept phone calls or follow someone online, but you have to get a court order and permission to stalk a particular person. But it looks like Putin actually is having face-to-face discussions or discussions across the internet with Putin. And you might remember Edward Snowden is in Russia now. He is a political asylum. And it says here, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden has made a surprise appearance on live TV in Russia, in which he asked Vladimir Putin whether the Kremlin carries out mass surveillance. The former contractor, who has been in hiding in Moscow since last summer, put the question to the Moscow premier today in what will be seen as another criticism of Western spying techniques. And former KGB agent Putin replied by addressing Snowden, who has been granted asylum in Russia, from one spy to another. And it looks like they actually were, here, maybe this video will play. This is a Russian video. All right, we don't want to play that. But, you know, the story here is that this is, I mean, this is a blatant slap in the face to President Obama, because President Obama wants to get Edward Snowden back. And it just goes to show you, Putin's going to do anything and everything he possibly can to make fun and degrade Obama's image across the world. All right, now this, you know, we've been reporting on the Bundys, the ranchers in Nevada, who've got besieged by the FBI and the BLM. And we talked about how Harry Reid is implicated in actually collusion with the Chinese to get control of the Bundy Ranch for a Chinese solar farm. And we also talked about how that part of the reason why they're trying to kick the Bundys off of this land that their family has utilized for over 100 years is because of this desert tortoise, which we reported on the government saying they didn't have enough money to keep up this tortoise facility for these endangered desert tortoises, so they were just going to euthanize all of them. So all of this is interrelated. Plus, there's another story that Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid from Nevada, was also implicated in a bribery scandal that went directly to Harry Reid, the senator. So it's amazing that this guy is still in office and people in Nevada keep supporting him. But this was something that I found here recently on Infowars.com. It's all over the place. And this article is written by Paul Joseph Watson. Says Senator Harry Reid has escalated the war of words on the Clevin Bundy dispute, sensationally labeling the Nevada cattle rancher supporters as domestic terrorists during an event in Las Vegas today. Now this is very well thought out. And this is something that you're going to see in the future. Anybody from the Tea Party or anyone that believes in civil disobedience and support of the Constitution is going to be labeled a terrorist. We've seen this coming from the beginning of the Obama administration. When I remember back now when, not Health and Human Services, but the Homeland Security put out a memo to all of its agents saying that anyone that belonged to the Tea Party or a conservative group or was a Christian is under suspicion as a terrorist. And I mean, we howled at it like, 6 years ago, but you can see now that this is definitely part of the narrative of the progressive socialist statist movement to brand or attempt to brand anyone from the Tea Party or anybody that stands up to the federal government as a domestic terrorist. And this is deeper than you might think, because if if a group like the Tea Party or any of these groups, these militia kind of groups or gun rights groups that were present during this whole turmoil over the Bundy Ranch, if they're deemed terrorists, they immediately lose their rights as citizens. There's various laws, there's executive decrees that allow for the government under certain circumstances to waive our civil rights. And so if they're branded terrorists like they were by Harry Reid and others, these people are standing up against the government, then they can be rounded up and arrested and stuck in a FEMA camp. And there are camps all over the United States to store large amount of people who are branded by the administration or the bureaucracy as terrorists or as enemies of the state. So just by the magic wand of the voice, a group that stands up against the government can be declared a terrorist, and they can lose their rights, their constitutional rights, which means they don't have to face their accuser, they don't have to be Mirandized, they don't have a right to counsel, they don't have a right to stand in front of a judge and be charged, and they can basically be taken out of circulation, is what I'm worried about. But to brand these individuals as terrorists and put them in the same camp as radical Muslims that blow themselves up in crowds of people or blow up airplanes is a gross exaggeration, but it's part of the scare tactics and the marginalization of Tea Party-like groups. But here's Harry Reid in a speech in Las Vegas. I'm trying to see where he was at. He was at the Paris Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And Reid was, I'm trying to see who he was talking to. We got the video. We're going to listen to it here in a moment. And like the author says, no matter where you stand on the Bundy issue, Reid's characterization of American protesters as domestic terrorists is chilling, and a massive backlash is almost certain to follow. And we listened to that one guy that said that this thing with Bundy is nothing but a dry run, so that the BLM and the FBI can kind of see, well, okay, this is who was there, this is how they reacted. And, you know, there's even reports that this whole thing at the Bundy Ranch was nothing but a false flag, and they were hoping for some lead to exchange sides, and that would be the chance to quell the disturbance, maybe even initiate martial law. I mean, I know that sounds like crazy talk, but false flag events have happened like this before. Look at North Korea. All right, here's Harry Reid. He is the Democrat U.S. Senator from Las Vegas, and he's talking about what happened at the Bundy Ranch over the weekend.
Hi guys, it's April 17, 2014. Well, Dirty Harry has upped the ante. Yes, our very greedy, despicable, immoral, corrupt politician claims that those who support the Bundys, domestic terrorists. Listen up.
Now, in Nevada, ranchers, they pay their taxes, they pay their fees, and they follow the law. That's the way it should be. Now, what about Cliven Bundy? Cliven Bundy does not recognize the United States. He says that the United States is a foreign government. He doesn't pay his taxes. He doesn't pay his fees, unlike the rest of the Nevada ranchers. And he doesn't follow the law. There are two court orders that have directed him to get your cattle off the land. And one of them one of the orders was written by Lloyd George, who's really one of the most thoughtful, considerate people in the country. He has exhausted his ability to go to court. But now he continues to thumb his nose at authority. I think that we have to put this in proper perspective. I've spoken to Sheriff Gillespie in detail. I've spoken to the Attorney General, Eric Holder, in detail. I've spoken to James Comey, the head of the FBI, in detail. Talked to him yesterday. I've talked to the Secretary of Interior yesterday. And it's an issue that we cannot let go and just walk away from. Keep in mind what happened up there. There were hundreds of people from around the country that came there. They had sniper rifles on the freeway. They had assault weapons. They had automatic weapons. And as one of the former sheriffs in Arizona said, and we had children and women lined up because if anyone got hurt, we want to make sure they got hurt first because we want the federal government to hurt women and children. This is the deal, and it's not a good one. So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists. And I think that we are a country that people should follow the law. And what went up in Mesquite is not very good. I repeat, what went on up there is domestic terrorism. Okay, domestic terrorism, not tourism.
Well, that was pretty intense. Domestic terrorists. Well, what do you guys think? Have a great night.
Well, one thing we know for sure that those words were rehearsed. They probably did some polling on whether or not that would be a good move for the Democrats, and obviously their polling shows that it is. But if you think about terrorists, I mean, you think about the original Tea Party individuals back in the 17th century, I mean, they were in a way terrorists, even though they weren't actually, well, I don't want to say that, but, you know, I guess in a way they were terrorists. But, you know, the thing is, we have a right to assemble. We have a right to stand up to our government. We have a right through the Second Amendment to be armed. And everything those people did at the Bundy Ranch was legal. And listening to Harry Reid, you wouldn't think people had a right to do that. And the Founding Fathers knew that eventually the government would grow to the size where they became tyrannical and overbearing. And that was the reason for the Second Amendment, because eventually the citizens are going to have to stand up to a ever-growing government. Government by design wants to grow. Any organization by design wants to grow. And the Founding Fathers had the foresight, by understanding 2,000 years of human history, that government will inherently grow beyond the bounds of its creator's intention. And we clearly have made that point. And these showdowns out in the rural areas are happening everywhere. They're happening all over Gunnison County, where the Forest Service and other government agencies want to shut down the forest, shut down roads. And it seems to be related to the UN Project 21, 21st century, where the UN wants to push all the population back into population centers and leave the vast expanses of open space free of humanity. And people have suggested that's part of what's going on here with the Bundys and the BLM and Harry Reid. And all I can do is bring this information to you and let you decide. The Project 21 from the UN, that concept is a lot for me to swallow. But it seems like it's true. We have another story about this to talk about. And the rationale is that the political elite, the academia nuts, they see this as righteous. They really want to save the planet. They think planet Earth is in danger. And the only way to save it is by population reduction, population control. So it's not too far-fetched to suggest that this Project 21 may be real. And this whole thing with Bundy in Las Vegas is all part of the process of implementing Project 21. All right, what do we have here? Oh, this is kind of interesting. This woman, let's see, what is this? I believe this is the president. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was coming. I told you the Bundy Ranch situation could be the new 1776. The globalists openly have converted Homeland Security over to a system to wage domestic war on political enemies. It was set up for that. You've heard in the news about the documents that we and others got that the government admits are real, where they list gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, returning veterans, and Christians as the main terror threat. The FBI now admits that. That's who they're targeting. Not the globalists that are funding Al-Qaeda publicly in Syria, Libya, and other areas. No, it's we the people. The Pentagon is trying to take on gun owners. This is a criminal takeover. Well, now Harry Reid, we have the video on Infowars.com, it's linked on DrudgeReport.com, came out last night and said he's talked to the head of the FBI, Homeland Security, all of them, that the Bundys basically are domestic terrorists. Their supporters are, who wanted to, quote, kill children. He actually says that. And they have automatic weapons. So, continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, he has now openly come out and said this, and we have the video right here on Infowars.com. So you need to go there. You can see the video on the site. Now, continuing, on top of that, White House counterterror chief says confrontational children could be terrorists, and the video is posted right there. I'm not joking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is really behind all of this? Look at this headline. New York Daily News. Kids suspended for bringing Nerf guns to school with teachers' permission. Kids get suspended if their neighbors see them playing with Nerf guns in their backyard. You can pull that article up. You say it makes no sense. You say it's crazy. You say it's nuts to claim that little kids are basically, some type of criminal for having guns, toy guns. Or you see these reports now saying that if a baby throws its bottle, that could be a major indicator that they're a terrorist. This is about making everyone criminal but the people running the system. This is about the rollout of a total authoritarian system, a total and complete nanny state, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we're breaking down every day here at Infowars.com. What we're seeing is the branding of any type of even speech against tyranny as terrorism. The free speech zones, the NSA spying, all of it is part of this system. So before people make jokes, and I see folks making jokes in the comments saying these people are crazy, these people are nuts, if the dog's aggressive, is it a terrorist? You got to understand, this is social engineering. This is a plan they're rolling out. This is why if a kid makes the image of their finger as a gun, bang, bang, in school, they get arrested. This is why if you ask a cop why you've been pulled over, you get tasered or taken to jail. It's a paramilitary takeover. Okay, this is literal mind control where they're expanding terrorism to everyone. First they roll it out to fight Al-Qaeda, and they say forget about Al-Qaeda, it's for you and your family. And now they're going to continue to grab land under June 21. They're going to continue to raise the taxes. They're going to continue to harass everybody until people start resisting. Then they're going to call it terrorism. Then they're going to stage terror attacks, blame it on their political opposition, and bring in martial law. This is their plan. This is what I keep warning you about. Please, for military, police, and others, understand what's happening. Understand that America is being shut down, deindustrialized, and the people are in a depression. And this is designed to create tension that the globalists can then basically use to bring in their next level of control. You've got to find a third way out of this. You've got to realize the globalist plan and the program that they're carrying out. David Knight's going to be hosting the show today. I'll be calling in repeatedly as well and doing work behind the scenes. Infowars.com for the free live feeds. And remember, if you're watching this transmission, you are the resistance to the foreign banks that have seized control of the government. These are the political commissar, political officers literally taking over the society. It's really happening. Children, parents, don't trust your children. They could be terrorists. This is on mainstream news with the White House counterterrorism chief. This is really happening. This is really unfolding, ladies and gentlemen. As I told you it would, Homeland Security is the takeover arm to shut down America and bring in the New World Order. Similar systems have been set up worldwide. Alex Jones signing off for Infowars.com. Get these stories out to people. This is a plan. They know what they're doing. This is a plan. Alex Jones again signing off.
Oh, man. I don't know what to say. Let's move on. Police, man ate pot candy before shooting wife. This is a big story. This could be the first ever case in, I bet this is in Colorado, of a actual murder because of marijuana. That's one of the things that proponents of marijuana always say, is that no one does anything violent on marijuana like they do with alcohol, meth, cocaine. So this is about 21 hours ago. This is Yahoo News. It's from Denver, AP, that's Associated Press. Authorities say a Denver man accused of killing his wife while she was on the phone with 911 dispatcher ate marijuana-infused candy before the attack. Search warrants released Thursday said 44-year-old Christy Kurt told dispatchers her husband brought and ate the candy before he started hallucinating and frightening the couple's 3 children. Oh my God. Police say 47-year-old Richard Kirk also may have taken prescription pain medication before he began acting erratically. Alright, looks like marijuana is saved by the pharmaceutical industry. It was not clear whether the pot influenced his behavior. Yeah, we already got that. Authorities say Richard Kirk shot his wife in the head about 10 minutes into her call with 911. Police say she told dispatchers her husband was getting a gun from the safe before a gunshot sounded and the line went quiet. The department is investigating whether police responded quickly enough. And you know it's going to happen. Somebody's going to kill their wife or kill their girlfriend or boyfriend and say, you know, I just had a bunch of marijuana candy, or I smoked a pound of pot and I was out of my mind and I did something that I'll never do again. I saw this story. I thought this was kind of dumb. And it says here, okay, this lady is Vandana Shiva, and she looks like she's Hindu. She has the dot, you know, the center eyeball on her head, and she has this smora, or whatever you call it, the shrong, and, you know, she looks like she's from India, and she's about 60 years old. And Vandana Shiva is her name again. And she's saying here, quote, I think the American people should see that the corporations abandoned them long ago. That people will have to build their own economies and rebuild democracy as a living democracy. The corporations belong to no land, no country, no people. They have no loyalty to anything apart from their profits. And the profits today are on an unimaginable scale. It has become illegitimate criminal profits extracted at the cost of life. And this is posted all over Facebook, and every liberal is going to be getting this in their Facebook page sooner or later. But it's just so insanely incorrect. And first, let's start from the beginning. This lady, Vandana, she says, I think the American people should see that the corporations abandoned them a long time ago. First off, Vandana, don't say should. Don't should on me, don't should on America, don't should on yourself, don't should on anyone else. And it's kind of an insult too. She says, I think the American people should see that the corporations abandoned them long ago. I mean, she's basically saying, you American people, you're kind of dumb, you're dense, you're thick. You can't even see this, that the corporations abandoned you long ago, which is ridiculous. That's her premise. She goes on to say that people will have to build their own economies and rebuild democracy as a living democracy. See, this is very pointed too, because what she's saying is that we need to adopt more socialism and more communism and rebuild democracy as a living democracy. Now see, this is a direct slap at our constitutional republic that says that our inalienable rights are given to us by the Almighty, and that we're rule of law, not rule of man. And in this wording of this phrase, she just denounced our Constitution by saying we need one that's living, which is exactly what is socialism and communism. Living, meaning that it's the control of the elite. The living, not in control of these words written by somebody 200 years ago. Living Constitution. Let's see, and they said, oh yeah, corporations, they have no loyalty to anything apart from their profits. Now that's such a lie on a lot of levels. I mean, one of the things you learn in business school is your most important asset is your employees. And that's why employees make more money, because they become more valuable. Other companies want to hire them and do, so you pay them more, you give them insurance. You got to take care of your employees or you don't have anything. And also the money that's invested in the corporations in stock, a lot of those investors are public retirement employees associations. So those people benefit off of a corporation that makes money and pays salaries, and these salaries, these people pay taxes. That pays for welfare benefits and roads and highways. I mean, to say that the corporations only think about their profits is really so wrong. And the corporation is really a organic organization in that if you own stock, you have a seat at the table. If you own enough stock. But at least you have a seat. At least you can write letters. You have votes. If you own stock, you get to vote on major issues. That's a big deal. It's very organic. Very organic democracy. Corporations are a organic democracy. And this idiot with the dot in her head, her third eye, is trying to tell us otherwise. And she has no idea how corporations work. And most people that badmouth corporations are of the same ilk. And that's why I'm going to spend time on this, because maybe you can help disassemble some of this thinking. Or at least you can teach somebody ahead of this woman about corporations and how they function. That's where you should spend your time. Don't worry about people that are already big drinkers of the progressive socialist Kool-Aid. Work on the kids and the people that are curious. And that's one of the things we're all going to have to do during this 2014 election cycle, is talk to the people who are on the lines. You know, who are on the line between conservative and liberal, or they have questions, or they're on the sidelines wondering which side they should be on. Those are the people you want to look for to spend time and talk to them about the stuff like this and the stuff we talk about on the Trailer Park Prophet, and of course, you know, what Rush and Glenn Beck are talking about, and all these other people too. I mean, this is as much psychological as it is political. And then, you know, and then she goes on to say, and the prophets today are on an unimaginable scale. I mean, that is such a nothing statement. I mean, she's saying that they're going up crazy. Well, they are going up, but it's because the federal government is pumping $85 billion into the market, and people are taking that $85 billion a month and buying stock. And that's Obama. A person this Bandana Silva loves with probably every fiber of her being. And she says it has become illegitimate. Illegitimate. That means that corporations, in this woman's eye, are a criminal enterprise. Illegitimate. Like the mob. Like the Crestone Eagle. I mean, what a word to use. A criminal profits extracted at the cost of life. So not only are these corporations illegitimate, but they're illegitimate at the cost of life. So basically, corporations are criminal entities. I mean, they're almost like a gun for hire, mercenaries, out there robbing people of money in exchange for their product. I mean, really, you think of the psychology and the development of this one small paragraph, and I can guarantee you that this thing I'm looking at right now on my Facebook page, the green background, you can look at it, Daniel Gray, trailerparkprophet.com. This is on millions of screens all across the world. Millions and millions and millions. And most of those millions and millions and millions are progressive socialist status. They're academics, they're wannabes, they're sycophants, God knows what. But they read this. And I got this from one of my friends who I really like. She's really cute. And I have like a little Facebook crush on her. But I told her what I thought about it. I told her, I said, you know what, this is really naive. Ignorant. I used ignorant, and I also used BS, turbo BS. And my friend Tommy Pushkal says the U.S. has the highest tax rate in the world and the most progressive tax system. Tell me again why businesses are leaving. And that's the other thing too. Tommy brings up a good point. Something like 75% of all tax is paid by the top 20%. Something like that. Like the top 20% in our economy, top 20%, part of the 1% or whatever, they pay 75% of the freight on all the government. And 50% of our population, roughly in there, don't pay any tax at all. That 50-50 dilemma again. And here's another example. This is exactly the tack that's going on out there by the progressive socialist movement. I got this AlterNet article written by Joe Baggett. I guess, bagging it. I like that. Joe bagging it. And here he's talking about capitalism. He says, Here's the headline. Our plunder of nature will end up killing capitalism and our obscene lifestyles. To anyone who is paying attention, things look doomed. Fortunately for the American capitalism, nobody is paying attention. They never have. And this was written back in July 2010. But Joe goes on to say, listen to this, as a Anglo-European white guy from a very long line of white guys, I want to talk about the brown, black, yellow, and red people for a marvelous 3-century joyride. During the past 300 years of the industrial age, as Europeans and later as Americans, we have managed to consume infinitely more than we ever produced. What? Thanks to colonialism, cricked up deals with despot, I can't say this word. Alright, I gotta skip it. And good old gunboats and grape shot. I don't know that term. Yes, we have lived and still live extravagant lifestyles far above the rest of you. And so my sincere thanks to all of you folks around the world working in sweatshops or living on $2 a day, even though you sit on vast oil deposits. And to those outside my window here in Mexico this morning, the two guys pruning the retired gringos' hedges with what look like pocket knives, I say, keep up the good work. It's the world's cheap labor guys you like. The black, brown, and yellow folks who take it up the shorts, who make capitalism look like it actually works, who keep on humping. Remember, we've got predator drones. I mean, this guy is freaking out of his mind crazy. And he has a hell of a platform to be crazy. And these guys write these lunatic articles, and then they wind up getting quoted by other lunatic media types, and the next thing you know, NBC's quoting one of these sources, like this guy here is the next Allah. But I guess the point I'm getting at with this article is, look at the imagery this guy paints. You know, this is an assassination on the notion of capitalism, on the notion of individualism, on the notion of rule of law. I mean, this is so classic as how the progressive socialist statists operate, and they're out there to just destroy people by their imagery, by the choice of words. You know, they're turning their opposition into villains. I mean, they're not dealing with the subject of the economy or the science of it. They're just completely visceral. I mean, they're trying to character assassinate people, not actually discuss the issues in an objective academic way. I mean, it's kind of fun to read, you know, because they're just so vicious. I got enough. I'm going to get sick reading any more of that. Alright, we're almost on the hour. My name is Daniel Gray. I'm a native of Littleton, Colorado. My show is called the Trailer Park Profit Show, and this is Local Friday, where we talk about some stuff that goes on locally, because all politics is local, and if you're not involved with your local government, you are a derelict. You are derelict in your duties, because that is one of the most important things if we're ever to maintain our liberty and our constitutional form of government. We need you to be involved with your local government. You got to know the issues, you got to know the players, And you got to be willing to stand up and be counted. That's part of your civic duty. Freedom's not free, and all politics is local. And again, the main reason that's so is because people get elected locally generally first, and then they move on up to the Congress and the Senate and maybe president. So if you don't kill off people's political careers early on, they could wind up to have another Barack Obama in the White House. Oh, this is, okay, this, actually, I got this from Bruce McDonald. He's on my Crestone Baca open forum. And we were listening to Alex Jones about this same story. And this is kind of interesting. It says that White House counterterrorism chief, confrontational children could be terrorists. It's right here. Obama advisor tells parents to be suspicious of their own kids. White House counterterrorism and Homeland Security advisor Lisa Monaco gave a speech this week in which she urged parents to watch their children for signs of confrontational behavior, which could be an indication of them becoming terrorists. See how everything fits together? During the speech at a Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government on Tuesday night, Monaco, who replaced John Brenner last year in overseeing the executive branch's Homeland Security activities, said that parents need to be suspicious of sudden personality changes in their children at home. Oh my God, that could suggest that they're terrorists. Turn them in. Quote, "What kinds of behavior are we talking about?" she said. For the most part, they're not related directly to plotting attacks. They're more suitable. For instance, parents might see sudden personality changes in their children at home becoming confrontational. What teenager or child doesn't become confrontational? I mean, it's almost like they want these kids turned in so that they can get in the government system. You know, then there'll be a law that all of these kids that are confrontational, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to get the chip. We need to keep track of you. But parents, I mean, telling parents, this is the government telling parents to be suspicious of their kid. Let's see. What else is here? Alright, I guess that's it. God, I wish we had a video, but oh my God. I read that now, that's chilling. She's going to be the new head of Homeland Security, which Alex Jones is suggesting is going to be the new, well, you know what Homeland Security looks like. Looks like what Obama wanted was a what do you call it, a domestic army. That's what Homeland Security might be like. Looks like what Alex Jones was talking about. Yeah, see now, you know what? This freaks me out. I got this story from Bruce McDonald as well. And he got it from thetruthwins.com. And Bruce writes here, what will you do when you can no longer buy or sell without submitting to biometric identification? In some areas of the world, payment systems that require palm scanning or face scanning are already being tested. We have entered an era where biometric security is being hailed as the solution to the antiquated security methods of the past. We are being promised that the constant problems that hackers are causing with their credit cards, bank accounts, ATM machines, and internet passwords will all go away once we switch over to biometric identification. And without a doubt, we have some massive security problems that need to be addressed. But do you really want a machine to read your face or your hand before you were able to buy anything, sell anything, or log on to the internet? Do you really want the system to be able to know where you are, what you are buying, what you are doing at virtually all times? Biometric security systems are being promoted as cool and cutting edge, but there is also potentially a dark side to them that should not be ignored. You know, my dog, Bailey Barker, has a chip. So if she ran off and got captured, all they got to do is put the wand across it, and you know they know this is Bailey Barker, and they have my contact information. And I wouldn't mind having the chip because now I'm almost 60 years old. My hips are failing me. I got a bad knee. And I'm out in the forest a lot. And there could be a time, like today, I forgot my cell phone. Duh. And I could slip and break a hip and be out there and die. But if people were looking for me, they could, I don't know. Seems like if you could turn on and off the chip, because I would like that information in that chip, by the way, that had my medical history. That would be very useful. I don't know, maybe not. You know, no one makes it out of this life alive, so it might be dumb, I don't know. Alright, we're going to see if this is funny. This is Laura Ingram's imitating Kathy Sebelius, who was the recently retired head of Health and Human Services.
100 herd of cattle rounded up for illegal grazing on federal land.
Laura Ingram's.
I have a question for the BLM. Don't they realize that this rancher, Cliven Bundy, did this to provide for his cows? He did it out of love. I'm awful. And I'm announcing I'm Jeb Bush's press secretary. Just pick me.
I didn't get that.
I think we do need to show, in general, a lot more sensitivity toward the ranching experience in the United States. Look, the federal crackdown on these cows is going to do nothing except send a lot of beef into the shadows. And I'm just... Remember when Carol Burnett used to start laughing during her own routines? I'm awful. But seriously, guys, we have snipers on hillsides in Vegas. And I swear one of them looked like Harry Reid. You know, I've never fired one of these. I only had a cap gun as a kid. Back in the 1890s. So we have American citizens surrounded by federal agents, 200 federal agents in this ranch land, okay? I'm thinking, you know, wait a second, you know, oh wait. I seem to be missing a page.
Alright, that's a joke. When Kathy Sebelius resigned her position at Health and Human Services, she was given her swan song, and lo and behold, she was missing a page out of her speech. I guess she wasn't listening or didn't have a teleprompter, but can you imagine if someone of that high profile is giving a speech and someone on her staff wasn't on top of making sure their boss had all the things she needed, like the pages of her speech? You know, well, that's what Laura Ingram is making fun of.
Poor Kathleen. Do you see that look on her face? Did someone already make that joke today? I hope not. They did? Well, not as funny as I did it. First of all, I can do the best Kathleen Sebelius impersonation of anyone.
The website really didn't crash. It just experienced a temporary brain freeze.
Don't you think she got fired just for that one interview with the Oklahoma reporter? I love that he asked her a kind of tough question. And yeah, where's the Jeopardy music? Do, 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 do. But the good thing about Kathleen Sebelius, she's like people who get their mug shots taken and they want a good mug shot, so she just kept smiling. Well, I guess we lost the connection with Secretary Sebelius.
No, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, that was a funny story. This was right before Kathy Sebelius resigned. She was doing a press conference, and someone in the press asked her whether or not, what was the question? It had to do with Obamacare, and it was a real straightforward question. The reporter asked of her if Obamacare was working. Why? Oh no, they said, what? If Obamacare is working so well, why have there been 30 extensions of different aspects of Obamacare? And Kathleen Sebelius just stood there with this deadpan look on her face, kind of a half smile, and there was this uncomfortable, pregnant pause that went on for like 10 seconds, and someone in the van, the media van, thought they lost the connection. And Sebelius heard that in her ear and said, no, we still have the connection. But she chose to just not answer the question and just stand there and offer nothing. I mean, normally a politician or a bureaucrat will offer up some kind of fodder, some sort of BS or tap dance. But it was an uncomfortable moment. It was like Kathy Sebelius may have had, a brain fart or a senior moment, or maybe she was having a mini stroke. I don't know. It was really odd. You probably saw it. A lot of people were doing the story because it was such an uncomfortable pause. All right, let's see here. Oh, I got this from my liberal black friend, Cortland D. Woolley. He's an interesting guy. He's big on marijuana. He follows all the marijuana stories, and he posted this one from Alternet. And it's written by a guy named Paul Armentano, posted yesterday. And it says the mainstream media launched into a reefer mad frenzy this week after researchers from Harvard University in Boston and Northwestern University in Chicago published the results of a neuroimaging study assessing the brains of a small cohort of regular marijuana smokers and non-users. The brain scans identified various differences between the two groups in 3 aspects of brain morphometry, gray matter, density, volume, and shape. These differences triggered dozens of high-profile media outlets to lose their collective minds, or as I like to call them, organic computers. Here's just a sample of the screaming headlines from CNN. Casual marijuana use may damage your brain. Science Daily. More joints equal more damage. Financial Post. Study proves occasional marijuana use is mind-altering. Time Magazine. Recreational pot use harmful to young people's minds. Smoking cannabis will change you. That's not a risk, it's a certainty. Oh, by the way, I gotta do some local stuff from Gunnison. Speaking of pot, this is Local Friday, and I don't know what the hell's going on in Gunnison, but they're going to have another election in the town of Gunnison to decide whether or not they want retail pot sales. And this is see, Gunnison voted once already, the county, and they okayed selling marijuana in the county. And then they had a initiative, and the people voted okay for marijuana, and now the town is going to put it before the ballot again. I don't know. I'm so confused. They talk so much about pot in Gunnison that I can't stay on top of the story. And I'm trying to think if there's anything I really want to talk about. I have Chris Dickey. I have his editorial before me. And Chris Dickey, he's not from Colorado. He came in and bought the Gunnison Country Times. And he is definitely a progressive socialist status. And I don't know if I really want to do a report on Chris Dickey. Let's see, what was his... no, I don't. God. I'm trying to remember some of the other big stories, though. Chris Dickey, he's the editor. He's not the editor. Well, he's the editor, actually, and he's the publisher of the Gunnison Country Times, and he is such a skippy. Chris Dickey is a skippy, and unfortunately some young boy died recently, one of the athletes from Western State Colorado University, a student named Damian Hurd, and they had a nice visual on the campus. I don't know how he died. It really kind of a sad thing. And here's the article here I was talking about. Chris Rourke, let the people decide. Gunnison City Council has indicated that it wants to put the question of whether to allow marijuana sales in city limits squarely on the shoulders of its citizenry in this upcoming November election. There's less people in the detention center in Gunnison. It's a 54-bed facility, and there were several elections in Gunnison as to whether or not the taxpayers of Gunnison wanted to pay for a new jail, and the voters turned it down 2 times, and then somehow, some way, somewhere, the county was able to dig up the necessary funds to build this jail 2 years ago. And like I said, it's a 52-bed detention center, and it can be expanded to hold 104 people. Gunnison, a town of 6,000. They probably got grant. I know they got grant money, but at any rate, their occupation rate has been down. And one of the things I used to complain about a lot, and I'm sure this is going on in your area, you ought to be able to look online and see who's in detention. If they've been charged, all right, as we have that right, then we ought to be able to go online and see who's in jail. I think that ought to be one of our rights. And like in Gunnison, I can tell you, you really want to know who in the hell's in that jail, because a lot of them would be illegal aliens. And I knew for a time there were 2 illegal alien child rapists in the Gunnison jail. 2 of them. And there could have been more. There's only 2 that I knew of. 2 men, 2 illegal aliens from Mexico, and they are in jail for raping children. We ought to know. You know, I tell you, this is key. This is key. And the other thing, too, is that if somebody goes in there for a DUI, we ought to know about it. Or if they're in there serving time for not paying child support or beating up their wife, we ought to know. Hey, Jimmy Joe's in jail. And the other thing we need is a oath court. All right? You know, anyone that raises the right hand and puts it on the Bible or the Quran and swears to God that they're going to uphold the Constitution and the laws of whatever office they're seeking, that if they violate that oath, or in the case of a lawyer or a police officer, anyone that takes an oath, we need an oath court, so that if they violate that oath, they can be prosecuted and or eventually punished. And we also need a oath court prisons all over the country. All right, enough of freaking Gunnison. That is such a nothing newspaper. This is Local Friday, and I used to go to the Gunnison Country Times all the time because, I knew a lot of the players, and I thought it was an interesting microcosm, the right size, where you could observe, as a political scientist, who the movers and shakers are and how that influences the community direction and decision. And it still is a good example, but it's hard to get information from the newspaper, the Gunnison Country Times, because Chris Dickey is a sycophant of the progressive socialist statist movement. 85% of the people in Gunnison work for the government, or they're retired on a government salary. 85%. This is so interesting. I love this quote. This is from Walter E. Williams. And Walter E. Williams is a brilliant man. He's a black man. He actually sits in for Rush Limbaugh sometimes, and I believe he's a professor. And he just says the most wonderful things. Again, this is Walter E. Williams. Prior to capitalism, the way people amassed great wealth was by looting, plundering, and enslaving their fellow man. Capitalism made it possible to become wealthy by serving your fellow man. Exactly, that's so true. And I think of places like Costa Rica. And if you have a little house and there's not enough income coming into that house to pay the bills, pay the taxes, what a lot of people will do will just start running a business right in the front of their house. And a lot of them have a little bodega, or they might have, like a 2-stool lunch counter or breakfast, and they're not open all the time. They're just open some of the time, and it's a real beautiful thing. I mean, it really is. It's a way for, like me, I looked at it as a way to, one, get a really inexpensive, wonderful home-cooked meal. I'm helping them out. I'm having a good experience. And they need the money to pay their bills. But there was no government involved, or licenses, or someone's approval. People were empowered by their own initiative and need to provide a gift or provide a service to their fellow man, just like Walter E. Williams said. And socialism, communism, statism, it takes that individual right away from people and says you're not doing anything economically unless it goes through us, the government. They're the mafia. I'm going to read this again by Walter E. Williams, and you think about my example in Costa Rica. Prior to capitalism, the way people amassed great wealth was by looting, plundering, and enslaving their fellow man. Capitalism made it possible to become wealthy by serving your fellow man. One of the first millionaires in Colorado was a black woman, by the way. But that relates back to, this whole notion that corporations are bad. And don't forget, corporations. We have corporations because people want to sue businesses. I mean, basically that's what a corporation does, is it limits liability. But the cost is corporations have to pay a 35% tax rate. So there's a trade-off. Corporations get limited liability, but they have to pay a higher amount in taxes. And they have to do that because of our litigious society. So many people are more than willing to hire a scummy lawyer and sue corporations. People looking for a free way through life. See, that's a big irony. And the other big irony is that Democrats receive 98% of all the campaign money that the Trial Lawyers Association give to political candidates. In other words, the irony is we have corporations because of people that sue. And the people that sue are the people that support the Democratic Party. Isn't that insanely ironic? Because if we didn't have lawyers suing businesses, we wouldn't have corporations. We wouldn't have to have corporations. And remember, the part of any Republican health reform plan is tort reform. And tort reform is changing the laws and the limits that allow lawyers to sue doctors. A big part of your health insurance is the doctor having to have errors and omission and malpractice insurance to protect him against the Democratic lawyers. Isn't it ironic? I was going to take it one step deeper, but I'm going to spare you. You just think about that. Alright? This is crazy. I love this story. Oh my God, this is so funny. Okay, I guess I can't. I might be having some computer problems. I'll just tell you about this story. I got this from Kane TV, and evidently the president was watching a baseball game. In fact, I'm sure the president already has thrown out the first pitch for one of the Major League Baseball games already. But according to this Kane TV, I can't get the post to give you some of the details. I guess we don't really need it, but the Mets have a mascot, and it's a regular human body with a baseball as the head, and this mascot has some kind of a gun that probably shoots out balls that say New York Mets on it, or t-shirts or something like that. And the headline here from Herman Kane TV is that the Secret Service was ready to shoot Mr. Met. Mr. Met, of course, is the mascot for the baseball team in New York. But can you imagine if the Secret Service was going to take out the mascot? I mean, it's obvious. This guy's a mascot, you know. The head's as big around as, you know, like one of those gym balls people bounce on. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. I want to, God damn it, what's going on here? All of a sudden I'm having some problems. Hang on here, I got to do a refresh. Oh, you know what, too? I should go back to my studio, make sure I don't have any callers. Man, I've been blabbing along here for quite a while. Alright, I got that refreshed. Alright, no callers. I'm sorry, I know some of you people have called in. If you do want to call in, I just know I'm gonna miss it, but you could try 646-716-8506, 646-716-8506. And again, remember, if you know anybody who is going to be traveling internationally, or if you know somebody who would like to travel internationally and would maybe like to meet one of the locals and see the local sites, you can do all that by going online, typing in Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. That's Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. We have offices all across the planet. We interview our females, our women, make sure they're not prostitutes or con artists. And you can go online to the Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. You can check out these women. We have over 20,000 of them. You can look at pictures. You can read their profiles. You can dream their wants, their likes, their dislikes. Just remember the Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. And if you're a woman listening to this right now, I want you to tell at least 50 people over the weekend about the Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. All right, not 50, just do 30. And you may bring them the most joy that you could ever imagine. You're going to improve the social fabric of your community by telling men about the Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. I'm telling you, women, this is something you have to do. Take some of the edges off of some of the more prickly men in your community. Tell them about the Trailer Park Profit Love Connection. All right, my page is refreshed. I'm scrolling through my stories. We got a half hour left. I'm really grateful to be here. I felt bad about taking off on Wednesday because I know a lot of you people like to download the program and you look forward to listening to it on your commute. So I felt kind of bad. But now I feel better because I'm here. I'm on the job. Your citizen journalist, Trailer Park Profit, Daniel Gray, broadcasting live from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado, on Blog Talk Radio. You guys have been great today at Blog Talk Radio. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome, giving me an opportunity to do something that I know a lot of people out there would really love to do. I mean, this is really a wonderful thing to have available to people like myself and others that have something that they'd like to say in a way that maybe people out there, a lot of you people out there, want to hear. So again, thank you. All right, I have this story here. I don't know what this is, but we're going to listen to it. The headline was enough to make me put it up here, so you're going to have to watch and listen along with the prophet. We're going to be experiencing the same thing. Not the same moment necessarily, unless you're listening live, but, it's kind of cool. And the headline here is Fake Feminists Attack Kirsten Dunst for Pro-Woman Beliefs. I have no idea. That is the weirdest thing. It says, underneath it says that an all-time when femininity, that's a tough word, femininity, has lost its value and motherhood has become a dirty word, exposing the feminist movement as nothing more than a top-down exploitation of women. All right, we're going to listen to this interview, see if it's as cool as reported. All right, take it away. Welcome to the Trailer Park Profit Show. Oh, I got to push the button again. This might be good. Alex Jones. Damn it, another Alex.
Actress Kirsten Dunst recently voiced her opinion for traditional gender roles, and feminists weren't happy about it. Dunst said to Harper's Bazaar, "I feel like the feminine has been a little undervalued. We all have to get our own jobs and make our own money, But staying at home, nurturing, being the mother, cooking, it's a valuable thing my mom created. And sometimes you need your knight in shining armor. I'm sorry, you need a man to be a man and a woman to be a woman. That's why relationships work. Cue feminist backlash. A Jezebel editor even called Kirsten dumb for expressing what makes her happy as a woman. Now, shouldn't a feminist protect the voices of all women, even those who choose to fill domestic roles? But these so-called pro-women groups only support correct choices, which for them means running after a career rather than raising the future generation. And this is a great time to be a woman. If we choose to climb the ladder of success, we can do that. But it's very anti-woman to suggest that if a female chooses a traditional gender role, that she's somehow mentally inferior or that she deserves to be socially stigmatized. Isn't there enough pressure? If your argument is that it's unreasonable for a woman to want to be a stay-at-home mom since 2 incomes are needed to survive in this country, well, that's exactly the conundrum of women in the workforce. Even with 2 workers in the household, people can't make ends meet nowadays. The movement to get women in the workforce wasn't about empowerment. As the late Aaron Russo revealed, the women's liberation movement was hijacked by the elite as a way to break up the family and as a method of revenue generation.
So Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about? And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think that women have the right to work, they equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, you know? And they start to laugh. I said, you're an idiot. He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded Women's Lib, you know? And we're the ones who got all of the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He said, there were 2 primary reasons. And they were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before Women's Lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. This really breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them.
Anyone can look at the cost of living increase, the rate of divorce, and over-medicated children being raised by the state to see that this plan has largely succeeded at the expense of the family. By hijacking feminism and making it about defeating men, the establishment has succeeded to a great extent in marrying women to the state. Feminism is a top-down social movement controlled by the political class. It's routinely used to exploit the female voter base, all while completely ignoring genuine women's rights issues. The Obama administration, like so many administrations before, can say they're for equal pay, but this is all just smoke and mirrors. Female staffers at the White House are paid just 88 cents for every dollar male employees earn.
I think it's going to understand why you're saying that's evidence of discrimination outside the White House, but the same metric is not evidence of discrimination inside the White House. I mean, it's the same metric.
Well, first of all, again, if you want to compare metrics, we're doing better than the public at large.
No. Better than the outside?
And top Democrats also pay female employees less than men. According to an analysis of salary figures collected from the Secretary of the Senate, female staffers in Democratic Senate offices were paid just 91 cents for each dollar paid to male staffers. Men received higher average salaries in more than 2/3 of the 43 Senate offices analyzed. Many of the senators with the largest pay disparity between men and women are facing re-election battles in 2014. Considering how important the female vote is to Democrats, it's not a wonder there's this huge Equal Pay Day push. Senator Dick Durbin, who is leading the push by Senate Democrats to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, pays women on his staff far less than he pays men. Female staffers in Senator Mark Warner's office are paid 72 cents on the dollar compared to male staffers, and it's just 71 cents to the dollar for female employees of Senator Mark Begich.
It's not just about women and their families. It's about building a stronger, more resilient
Mary
in
Landrieu,
America that has been
Senator
under
from
stress
LA
and threat now for decades.
Well, she's very passionate for a senator who pays her female employees just 82 cents for every dollar her male staffers earn. And there are numerous other senators up for re-election with a large gender wage gap. The Democratic Party, the White House, they don't actually care about equal pay for women. It's already illegal to discriminate based on gender under the Equal Pay Act of 1963. What they care about is retaining power, being re-elected, and keeping women from seeing their hypocrisy. The problem with this often cited 77 cents gender pay gap stat is that it's based on selective data. The Washington Post fact-check piece says the 77 cents number is based on Census Bureau annual wage data that doesn't consider hourly wages versus salaried workers. It doesn't factor teachers who work 9 months out of the year, for example. It doesn't differentiate between education levels or years of experience. Perpetuating the myth of unequal pay without providing context not only serves to make working women feel victimized, it continues to further divide us.
Exactly.
Will this newly fueled push for the feminist movement really be about Hillary Clinton 2016? When there's no race card to pull and the country can no longer be easily divided along racial lines, will sexism be the new racism? Now, if you're against Obama's policies, you are racist. In 2016, disagreeing with Hillary equates to being anti-woman. And I'm not saying there aren't plenty of racist misogynists out there, but both of these are tools used by the ruling class to conquer and divide. And while the Paycheck Fairness Act might be good politics, with both parties agreeing something needs to be done, passing legislation based on selective data that will result in more civil lawsuits isn't good policy. To be clear, this isn't about finally granting women equality. By trotting out their Paycheck Fairness Act, Democrats can underscore their Republican war on women meme, and both sides can shift voters' focus onto ancillary issues while avoiding key political problems, like how to get all these people off of welfare. But that's not the point.
Wow, man, oh man, oh man. That actually was on Alex Jones' network, but that woman, I don't see her name right now. Maybe if I go back to her. That, you know, what a great report. This young lady, and she's a very young lady. I think she's in her 30s, and she just gave a wonderful, wonderful, what they say in the industry package, news package. What, you know, that's how journalism ought to be. What this young lady did right there. This was 8 minutes long. That's journalism, my fellow lovers of liberty. I mean, that really was a nice piece of journalism. And I'm kind of overwhelmed. But, you know, the whole thing, though, is that women's lib is co-opted by nefarious forces. I've tried to bring that idea to you in any number of ways, but this lady, I thought, knocked it right out of the park. It's not about feminism. It's not about gay rights. It's about progressive socialism, statism. That's what it's all about. Women's rights, gay rights, children's rights are trumped by the progressive socialist status. I mean, I don't know how else to put it to you much clearer. But here is, I got this from Jerry Thomas, and he's one of my friends on the Crestone Bach open forum. And Jerry Thomas writes here, he says, I totally agree with the premise of capping income and wealth using tax policy. However, the details of execution would require some real brainstorming and must incorporate appropriate checks and balances. And the appropriate checks and balances are that the people that are rich now would still be able to keep their money. There's no way any society is going to take all the wealth and then divide it evenly. I mean, just the logistics are incapable of actually doing, you know, but the idea, it's the psychology of the idea that through redistribution and income equality that you know, people get this image of their mind where you would bring together all the money and divide it equally. That's the basic economic IQ of most people that are receiving welfare benefits right now. But here's this guy. His name is David Laska. He's the Republican Party, or I guess he's with the Republican Party of New York State joins Tom Hartman. Oh, Tom Hartman, you're going to love this. The Koch brothers are collectively worth $100 billion. Why would anyone need to? You know what? The Koch brothers are collectively worth $100 billion. That sounds right. But you think of all the other progressive socialists, you know, like I'm thinking of the guy that owned Microsoft. I mean, he's worth much more than that. And so is any number. Well, I mean, I guess what I wanted to say here is I wanted to say that 7 of the top richest billionaires in the United States are progressive socialists. All right, so let's listen to this. I believe this is Tom Hartman speaking. All right, go ahead, Tom. Welcome again to the Trailer Park Profit Show. My name's Daniel Gray. If you have any questions, just ask. All right, I'm trying to get this to post. Here we go. Come on, Tom. We're waiting. Oh, we got an advertisement.
I worry about the economy more than a few times before they're grown, but it's for them. So I found a way. Who matters most to you says the most about you.
It's time to outlaw billionaires.
They matter most to us.
But only conservative billionaires. All right, Tom, take it away, bud. Thanks for being here on the Trailer Park Profit Show. We appreciate your courage. Looks like this is actually from RT, which is a pretty big deal.
It's time to outlaw Bill.
Come on, buddy. Need to know. Come on, dude, let's go for it. Ah, damn it. Maybe I gotta refresh this baby. Son of a gun. Here we go.
The Koch brothers reached a new personal milestone. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, they now have a total net worth of over $100 billion. That means if the Kochs were counted as a single person, they would be the single richest person in the entire world. They're winning the game of Monopoly.
Wait.
It also means that they can control 2 million times the amount of wealth that the average American takes home every year. That, of course, raises the question, just what exactly do the Kochs do with all that money? Well, for one, they spend a lot of it trying to help Republicans win elections. The Koch-backed group Americans for Prosperity, for example, has already spent $22 million in television ads this election cycle, outpacing all other Republican groups combined. The fact that super-rich tycoons like the Kochs have such a huge role in our political system would have terrified our most famous founding father, Thomas Jefferson. He laid out his thoughts about the dangerous role of money in politics in an 1816 letter to Samuel Kercheval.
Now notice they make these facts, but they're solo and they stand alone. Like they don't mention that the Koch brothers compared to other progressive billionaires. Just listen to how all the logic cycle here and how he sets up his premise and then he supports it with not even using adequate comparisons. And it's just so slimy.
But in those seeking profits, were they given total freedom, would not be the ones to trust to keep government pure and our rights secure. Indeed, it has always been those seeking wealth who were the source of corruption in government. But the problem with the Koch brothers isn't just that they use their money to corrupt the board.
And the most wealthy corporations and individuals in the U.S. are progressive socialist status. But the inference here is that it's Republicans like the Koch brothers. I mean, see, that's the whole picture. That's the whole tamale. And this is what you have to understand. This is another classic example of lying by omission. All right, let's continue.
System. Ultimately, the biggest problem with the Koch brothers and every other billionaire in the United States and around the world is that they're billionaires, and thus, by definition, have more money than they can ever hope to use. This has devastating consequences for the economy. Think of it this way. The average person making, say, 50 grand a year, U.S. average, puts almost their entire salary, actually that's a U.S. household average.
And remember here that relates to a story we did previously is, okay, the average income or the average household income is $50,000 a year, and we reported earlier that that average household is going to be spending $7,800 to pay for their share of the welfare institution. Remember that. Okay, let's continue.
The individual average is almost half that. Anyhow, they put almost their entire salary back into the economy by spending it on things like groceries, consumer goods, food, and transportation.
Taxes.
That creates demand.
Welfare.
Stimulates the economy and helps it grow. Billionaires like the Koch brothers, however, don't behave the same way as everyday people do with all the money that they make.
They buy houses, yachts.
They end up having millions of dollars left over every day after buying their groceries and paying their mortgage if they even have one.
This is so
spending all that extra money on productive things that stimulate the economy.
Idiotic.
They throw it into the Wall Street casino or stash it in Swiss bank accounts. This robs the productive economy of trillions of dollars.
They can't stash it in Swiss or Switzerland's bank accounts anymore. So this guy is obviously not even current. We talked about this, that the sun is shined or shone on those Swiss bank accounts. The federal government now knows the Americans that have money there, and so anyway, this guy is so not up to speed.
Worth of demand that could be building a vibrant economy and stabilizing the lives of working people and small business owners. We've seen over the past 30-plus years.
All right, I can't listen anymore.
Since the Reagan Revolution.
All right, you can go to my Facebook page. You can see this posted by Jerry Thomas. It's time to outlaw billionaires. If it was earlier in the program, we might go through this whole thing because it's important. This guy's a big deal. This Thom, T-H-O-M, Hartman. I mean, he is one of the darlings of the progressive socialist statist movement. So, you can watch this and you know that academics, professors, politicians, think tank groupies, employees, they look at Thom Hartman, and they look at him as one of the stalwarts of the progressive socialist movement. So you really ought to go and look at this whole video. It's only 8 minutes long. Let's see. Alright, we only have 9 minutes left. I'm almost thinking about just bugging out of here. Oh, well, here, let's do this now that good news. Harvard's record high percentage of black students is very small. Win for diversity. Interesting article from The Wire. African Americans made up a record high 11.9% of Harvard's accepted class of 2018. But 2018, that must be some kind of a mistake. But while that improved diversity is a cause for some applause, I don't know. See, blacks make up 16% of the population. Okay, maybe this will post. I got a feeling this... Oh my god, now I got something going on with my computer again. On the same story. Media Matters for America. Fighting SEIU attempt to unionize its staff. This is freaking hilarious. Remember, Media Matters was started by progressive socialist statists as a counterweight to Fox News. And the union, the SEIU, is the Service Employees International Union that we reported that were in Egypt during the overthrow of Bolsi Mubarak. But not to digress too much, but it's ironic that Media Matters, which is a turbo-liberal, progressive socialist status organization is now fighting against the SEIU in an attempt to unionize their staff. I mean, this is just positively hilarious. And Herman Cain has a piece on Herman Cain TV or Cain TV. You can look into it. But, I mean, what an irony of ironies. All right, we're not doing that story. I'm not doing that story. No more on the Bundy Ranch. You guys keep track of that over the weekend. If you see anything about the... hold on, everybody. Looks like I may have some problems. I'm still on the air. I still have 4 minutes left, but I'm hearing this pinging. It sounds like a sonar pinging from Blog Talk Radio that tells me that maybe there's a problem with our connection. So, oh, you know what it is? It's an internet connection. And do I want to continue? Yes, I want to continue.
You're calling back into a live show. We are reconnecting you now.
Alright, everybody. Wait a minute. I was going to end the show, but you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm back online, and I might as well finish up these stories. Really haunting pictures here of Phantom in southern Sudan and Africa. This weekend, if you have an opportunity to give some money to CARE or some international organization, these people in the southern Sudan they're dying. I mean, this is a horrible, horrible situation in the Sudan of Africa. Let's see. Okay, we're not going to be able to do that. Oh! In 2014, Americans will work from January 1 to April 21st to pay off their tax bill to the government. So basically, people that have jobs in the private sector work almost half a year to pay for all their tax burden. Not sustainable, my fellow lovers of liberty. Alright, you know what? Oh, here, we got a Ronald Reagan quote. This is a good one. I'm glad I got to this. It says here, Ronald Reagan again, "We have problems in our country, and many are praying and waiting for God to do something. I just wonder if maybe God isn't waiting for us to do something. And while no one is capable of doing everything, everyone is capable of doing something. Everyone is capable of doing something. And I feel like we've reached a time in history where we can no longer afford so many people standing on the sidelines. I know you feel like I do, that something's really wrong in our society. This Barack Hussein Obama isn't who he said he was. And our country is headed towards a huge financial disaster. We are looking at the Great Depression. I know that sounds alarmist, but I really do have some bad feelings. Seconds. And here I'm going to leave you with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. He writes, "No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and the government." Don't you forget that, my fellow lovers of liberty. Alright, everybody, I gotta get out of here. Drizzle, drazzle, drizzle, drone. Time for this prophet. Head back to the forest. Think about nature. I enjoy nature's company, and I'm going to enjoy your company on Monday. All right, everybody, have any kind of weekend you want. Adios. See you guys. Thanks a lot, man. I love you.